Welcome to Really Old Movies. I'm your host, Harrison Scullin, and today I got two guests, Nathan Hale from Nathan Hale Classics and Adrian from Tarana Cinema. I'm going to go ahead and bring them in, and today we're going to talk about our top 10 1950s movies. So without further ado, welcome, guys.
Hey, guys.
Hello. Thank you for having us on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm really excited for this, to hear your guys' top 10 1950s movies. And to get started, why don't we have you each introduce yourselves and what your channel or reviews is all about. So let's start off with Adrian.
Cool. So my name is Adrian. My Instagram account is called Tarana Cinema. And I've basically started this account about a year ago. And a little more than a year ago now. And what I'm trying to do with this is to honor the entire history of world cinema from the very beginning to the continuous end, meaning from 1888, Louis Le Prince, to Marvel, I suppose. Filmmaker per filmmaker, film per film, one film at a time. Right now, we're in the mid-30s, end of the 30s in Japan. We're doing Ozu. And then slowly we'll get back to the US, to Disney, and then the 40s, and then 50s and 60s and on. And so it's to do all of it, right, or to do as much of it as possible, is the mission of the channel.
That's really cool.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nathan?
Yeah, that's awesome. Adrian, just hearing you talk about that made me want to start at the very beginning and go through it all. And that's an amazing task. And I think, all three of us are cinephiles. We like the classics and everything. So I'm sure all three of us are like, wow, it's amazing. So my name's Nathan Hale. I have the YouTube channel Nathan Hale Classics, where I post a variety of things, but recently, more like in the last several months, I've been trying to gear more towards classic cinema or just black and white era. So Twilight Zone videos, or ranking movies from like black and white era or 60s, whatever it may be, but focusing on the old Hollywood basically. And it's a common thing that I do on my channel, kind of similar to what Adrian's doing, where he's going through world cinema. It's similar in the sense that it's something that I'm doing to challenge myself, but I like having different 25 movie challenges where I basically spin a wheel of different, a variety of options of different kinds of movies I could watch. And they're all movies that I've been meaning to watch. And so I've done three, I refer to them as seasons, but I've done 3 seasons of them. So the first season was looking at 25 movies from the 1970s that I had never seen before. And then season 2 was choosing 5 actors that I wanted to see more of and watching 5 of their movies. And then season 3, what I just finished, was 25 Western movies, which was a blast. And then season 4 will kick off in June. And that one's kind of an interesting one. It's a wheel of 100 different options. And every time I'm ready for my next movie, I spin the wheel, and whatever the wheel lands on, that's what I'm watching. And so I do that 25 times basically. But it's been a blast doing that, getting to know more movies, and I've already discovered so many favorites. So that's kind of what I do on my channel. Talk movies, talk the classics. And so you can imagine I'm very excited for today's stream.
That is awesome. It's such a great way to discover new films. The best way is challenges or lists, I find.
Yep, I agree. And I love making both of them. I love doing both of them too. So it's perfect. Yeah.
Serial list maker.
Yes. Oh, I'm absolutely a serial list maker. I think if you have over 100 on Letterboxd, you've made that status.
Oh,
Yes.
for sure.
Yeah, it's bad.
Great. Well, thank you both so much for coming on. And make sure to click the links in the description, guys. I have their Instagram pages, YouTube channels, pretty much everything that they're promoting on. So, yeah, just make sure to follow them there. And let's go ahead and get into our top 10s. And we'll start off with Adrian's.
Here we go.
Pull it up real quick. Okay. There we go.
Number 10. There it is. Oh, all right. So first of all, are any of you familiar with the film?
Absolutely, yes.
Nope.
I love this movie. This was
you've seen it, right?
I've seen it twice. Yeah.
You've seen it twice. Okay.
Yeah.
So starting out with a small classic, this is a film by Clouzot, Henry George Clouzot, who was the French Hitchcock, right? What they called the French Hitchcock. And he was a master of suspense, the same way that Alfred was in America. And when he made this film that was remade as The Sorcerer by William Friedkin. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that one. That came out in the 70s, or I think it was the 70s.
Yeah. I watched that for my 70s challenge.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
And it's truly a remarkable feat of suspense. It's edge of your seat entertainment. It's so thrilling, and it's so bizarre as well in its structure. Like in the way, like for an hour of the film, it's all set up, and it's all set up for the most excruciating ride that these characters will ever face. And so it's an incredible character study for the first hour, and it's an incredible lesson in suspense in the second hour. And I think it's the second hour and a half, because I believe it's a 2.5-hour film. And it's jaw-dropping, and the filmmaking is incredible. But I feel like where the heart of this is, what makes this an absolute classic, is the protagonists, who are Yves Montand, who was a singer in France. He wasn't even an actor; he was a singer who acted sometimes, but he was a singer first. And then Charles Vanel, who was a veteran of French cinema, right? He was an actor in the 30s in French cinema. And both of these characters are very unlikable in a way. They're not the most likable characters you'll ever see. It's very rare that you will find a film like this in the US, for example. Their morality is questionable. And what's really fascinating is in the midst of life and death, their humanity or inhumanity will come out the most. And that's, I feel like, what makes this an absolute classic. It's a character study. It's a lesson in suspense. And he got, Hitchcock all over it. It's brilliant.
Oh, that's really cool. I'm loving the cover for that. Like, I love the look of the guy's face who's looking downward. It really draws your attention to his face. And
absolutely.
That's really cool.
Nathan, you got...
Yes. I was just going to say, this movie is insane. I prefer this to Sorcerer. I don't know how you. Okay, cool. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, okay. I'm glad we're on the same page, because I know there's some
Sorcerer I liked, but there was so many, like that whole beginning, that whole first act, that then they did the backstories of every character.
I was going to say it added too much story, and I didn't want a story. I wanted just these 4 men who are wanting to get out of the situation they're in.
Yep.
And you feel for them even though you don't know them. And you're just exactly what you said, edge of your seat, excitement and entertainment the entire time. One scene that I always think of when I think of this movie, it's with the guy on the cover that's closing his eyes and leaning.
Charles Vanel.
Yes, yeah. He's actually in a Hitchcock movie. He's in To Catch a Thief. But
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
But it's that scene where there's a rock falling from a hill, and it's just about to hit the liquid. Yeah. It's just about to touch, but it stops right before. And you as a viewer, you're like, oh my gosh, it's going to touch. And then it stops, and you're like, oh.
Basically, Harrison, the premise is that they have to drive transport. That's right. Yeah. Transport these incredibly fragile, what was it, hydraulic?
It's like liquid nitroglycerin or something like that.
There you go. That's what it is. and
Basically a liquid bomb.
basically,
Yeah.
a sudden movement can mean death at a moment's notice. So
Oh, wow.
it's and again, like Spielberg took from that when he made Jaws. You know, like
Totally.
it's very, very meticulous
And it's
in the
off-roading.
way it builds suspense. And also thanks to this incredible premise, which is literally they have to drive these truck through mountainous areas.
Mm-hmm.
One wrong move and it can all go down. And then the twists and turns and surprises.
And it gets to a point where it's like they're. So I'll give you a little sneak preview, Harrison. They're at a point where they're on a road where it's like it's a bumpy road, and they're like, all right, we either have to speed through this road so that we're going so fast that the bumps don't react, like so we don't react to the bumps, or we need to go so slow that we don't react to the bumps. There's no in between, and so and there's just a lot of.
That's one of my favorite moments, actually.
Yeah. There's a lot of moments.
And the
Yep.
Great.
It's an amazing movie.
Oh man, I gotta check that out. I actually grabbed a notebook here so I can write that.
Yes. Nice.
All
Adrian,
right.
I think you'll like my number 10, but I'll save that.
Sounds good.
All right, let's move on to your number 9.
Hey, nice.
I
There you
mean, the best Western of all time. I mean, for me, my favorite Western of all time. For now, you know,
Nice.
I may one day change my views as I grow old, but there's this not just with the fact that it's one of the most beautiful shot Western ever. I mean, every single frame is a painting. This is John Wayne's best performance. And it's an incredible study on what it was to be an American at the turn of the century, right? When at the end of an era. Again, I love these films like The Leopard and Once Upon a Time in America that are all about the end of an era and how the characters transition through that. Do they stay the same or do they adapt? And John Wayne's character, Ethan, does not adapt. He is the same. And there's only one thing that changes based on his morality and based on his views. He is willing to turn them down to save his kid. Right. And I feel like that's such a powerful moment in the landscape of it all. And so I feel like it's a real true testament on loneliness and solitude, patriotism, et cetera, et cetera. And then that, with that said, when I was watching the film, I was watching my favorite films, meaning I was watching Star Wars when the village burns at the beginning and Aunt Owen and Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru dies. Taxi Driver, Travis Bickle is Ethan Edwards. The relationship in Breaking Bad between Walter White and Jesse Pinkman is the relationship between Ethan and the kid. Lawrence of Arabia, it was said that David Lean studied and dissected every single frame of the mountains in Monument Valley for his dunes in Lawrence of Arabia, right? Like the amount of influence that's in this film is almost uncanny to anything else. And I feel like when you're watching this, you're not just watching a masterpiece in itself, you're also watching all of this influence that was made because of this film in hindsight. And so I feel like you could appreciate it more now almost than you did when John Milius and Spielberg and Scorsese were watching it in the 50s. I don't know if that's right, but I'm saying like there's this added element to it, which is why it makes it to my top 10 list of all time. Of 50s, sorry, not all time. Of the 50s.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Have you seen this, Harrison?
What's that?
Have you seen this one?
Agree?
No, I haven't seen it yet. It's on my watch list. I have like 2,500 movies on it.
I have to ask every time. I'm going to ask every time if you guys have seen it because I thought that The Searchers was seen by everyone here, which is why like sometimes I'll make sure to ask before. Okay. Nathan, what do you think?
Good. I like it a lot. Yeah, it was towards the top of so it was part of my 25 Western challenge, and it was towards the top of my ranking. I want to say it made top 10. I'm sure it did. Because it was like a 4.5 out of 5 movie for me.
Gotcha.
It was just a movie that, like you said, it was one of the first I watched on the challenge. And so right away it opened the door of what a Western is and what it should be.
Yeah.
And it made me just want to hop on a horse and travel through canyons and the desert and everything. It's just
and the winter and the
in the
snow
winter.
and
Yeah,
you know.
exactly. It's a really an all seasonal movie, and
Absolutely.
it was funnier than I was expecting too. It was like way funnier than I was expecting it to be. I found myself laughing several moments, and I can't even remember his partner's name, but that guy who's on the journey with him, he made me laugh a lot.
It's Jesse Pinkman and Walter White. It's
It's true. It's
it's
true. Yeah.
insane how the influence of this was how it's all there. It's painted in all of it. And there's also the famous ode to Harry Carey Sr. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. He was an old Western star of the 20s and the 30s.
I recognize the name.
When John Ford was making movies for the first time in the 30s, right? When he was making films like The Young Abraham Lincoln and before he made Stagecoach, he was making these. He met and he was actually he directed the big Western star of the time was Harry Carey Sr., who then had a kid, Harry Carey Jr., who plays in The Searchers. And
Awesome.
and Harry Carey Sr. used to have this sort of like hand on the arm on the left arm like this, and that used to be his move. And John Wayne makes that move at the end, and he had just died. And it was an ode to that era, because it was not just the end of an era for the character, it was the end of an era for the Western cinema, the American Western cinema of that time. So there was like a lot of little tidbits like that into the film, which makes it even better to watch.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was just looking up Harry Carey Jr. and that's awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
That's great. Man, I really got to watch this now.
For sure.
Good one.
All right, let's move on to the next one. There we go.
Best American comedy of all time.
Nice.
Said. You both have seen it, right?
Yeah,
I own it. I haven't seen it though.
You haven't seen it yet. Okay, so I won't. I was gonna spoil the ending line, which is such.
I've seen that. Everyone.
Oh, you've seen that? Okay, right. But I'm a man. Nobody's perfect.
Yeah. So really quickly, I don't mean to interrupt, but I've been to Billy Wilder's grave in California, and his tombstone says, it either says I'm a writer or a director. It says I'm a writer, but hey, nobody's perfect. That's like what his tombstone says. It's really cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a perfect script.
Mm-hmm.
It's a perfect film. I feel like what's the most interesting of this film today is the study on gender identity in the show business.
Mm-hmm.
To see that in the 50s, right? Like how genders are mixed and meshed together between women and men, and what it means to be a woman and a man in the show business.
Mm-hmm.
In the 50s, right? In the 50s, during the Hays Code, having all of that be, even though it was the end of the Hays Code, but still, like having that be not just greenlit, but acclaimed widely by a wide audience, I think is just phenomenal. So yeah, there's not much to say besides it's just brilliant, it's timeless, and it's funny as hell.
I was gonna say the only thing I'll add is that I think with a lot of Billy Wilder's movies, you'll see that they're timeless. They all feel so ahead of their time, and this is definitely one of them. I have a Billy Wilder movie on the list too, so there's a reason.
I'm not sure it's the fifth. I don't think it's the 50s. I think it's way later. By the end of his career, he made a film that I feel like is completely underrated that very few people have seen. It's called 1, 2, 3. It's a satire.
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
Yeah. So last year I did a ranking. I've seen every Billy Wilder movie. It's on the channel. It's all of his movies ranked. I think he made 25 in his career. So 1, 2, 3 was in the top 10, I believe. It's a very fast-paced movie. Lots of fast talking, and it's amazing.
It's a satire on the Cold War.
Yeah.
But it's also Cagney. I mean, Cagney's a genius, but it's Cagney's last role, last great role.
Yeah.
Before it was over, and he just goes out with a bang. So just to put it out there, if you guys haven't seen one, well, if Harrison, if you haven't seen 1, 2, 3, highly recommend.
Yes, is that the poster with the balloons on it?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm a Saul Bass fan, graphic design background. So I really love that poster.
It's a great poster.
It's an amazing poster for sure.
All right. Move on to the next one. There we go.
Okay, so we're at 6, right?
I think so.
I think this is 7.
7. Have you both seen it?
I've seen it. Yep.
Yes.
Great. So I mean, again, Max von Sydow plays chess with death to delay his own fate. I mean,
genius.
Once you said that, I think that's it. I mean, so not only is that just mind blowing, but I feel like the best meditation I've ever seen on the relationship between us humans and death, and how we deal with that, especially within that setting of 100 Years' War, medieval Sweden, to have all of these kind of storyline go through life, which is not so much of a life, all the while wondering if it may not be better afterwards. It may not be more peaceful afterwards. And I feel like it's a full-on meditation beyond the cinematography, the brilliant cinematography, the brilliant performance from Max von Sydow, and the brilliant set design and the poetic atmosphere that surrounds it. I mean, it's a truly remarkable piece. But on top of all of that, I feel like what makes it such a classic and what made it in my top 10 is the reflection that I had afterwards to this day on my relationship with death. So that's my take on it.
I love that. Yeah. I need to rewatch it. I've only seen it once, and it's due for a rewatch.
And although it's not my favorite Bergman, I think it's my second favorite or like third favorite. My favorite being Autumn Sonata, which I would recommend wholeheartedly. Best film on family relations, like one of with Tokyo Story. I think we've talked about this, Nathan, on Letterboxd, or was it? I'm not sure. No, I don't think we've talked about it. But it was. I was talking about how Tokyo Story was like the best film I've ever seen on family relationships.
Yeah.
Right? And that this one is Autumn Sonata is mother-daughter, and it's brilliant. But yeah, I feel like it's really one of the tops because it has such a great and such a timeless concept, and a concept that will never die because we'll never know what happens after. So there's that unless something does happen and we just don't know, and the mere mortals will not know until they get there, right? But so it makes us think, and that final image of the dance going towards their death, right? The dance with the death at the end of it is such an iconic, perfect like moment of cinema, pure moment of cinema. So
yeah, well said. Have you seen any of the Criterion documentaries? I really liked those talking about it.
On the Seventh Seal, absolutely.
Yeah,
I saw like there was one when it was like on Bergman Island, and he talks about like his work with like Liv Ullmann, and he talks about his work with B.B. Anderson, and he talks about how from Persona, that I believe is it before or after, maybe before, one of the two, but he talks about the inspiration that he got for the Seventh Seal on the set of, I believe it was Persona, but I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, no, I love those documentaries as well. They're absolutely fascinating into the mind of Bergman.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the how he set up a lot of the shots and the scenes based on old medieval paintings too.
That's true.
So I like that attention to detail and work he put into it.
Even though it's a depressing film, it's a hard film to watch. It's a hard watch. It's not easy at all. It's not accessible. But if you get into mind, the ride that he wants you to get it on, that to get on, then I think it's a masterpiece. But yeah.
All right. We'll move on to the next one.
Number 6. Ooh.
Mhm.
Orpheus. All right, who has seen that? Oh wow. Okay, Harrison?
Nope.
No. So Orpheus is okay. So there is a bit of a. This is the only, like, very rarely will I say this, but there may be some language barrier with these kind of films. By these kind of films, I really mean this kind of film, because it is a film that is based in poetry, right? Jean Cocteau was a very famous French poet. He was actually probably the greatest, with Jacques Prévert, who was also writing scripts during that time, the 40s and the 50s in France. That movement in France was called poetic realism. So poetry was intrinsic inside of every single screenplay, right? It was almost the work of the screenwriter in France than the work of the director, right? That was more important. The words are right. They flow like silk, and Orpheus is one of those great examples of pure French poetry, of the French language. So when you don't speak the language, you get it, and there's still incredible visuals, because I mean, I love the fantasy elements. I love the journey, and the journey, again, the relationship with death as well, and the sacrifice of death at the end. It's the true story of Orpheus, but done in a way that prioritizes the poetry, and especially in this film, the poetry of Cocteau. So he's made Beauty and the Beast before that. I think you both have seen.
Yeah,
and Beauty and the Beast is also a work of true poetry, of true French poetry. I don't like it as much as Orpheus. I like it. I think it's very good. I think it lacks in a lot of ways. I think that Orpheus really, really struck a chord. The way he uses his metaphors, and the way with either death or the fantasy around it, the mirrors, the sacrifice that they have to make, what it means to be happy. It really speaks on incredible themes, while having this poetry around it. So that's also why I love it so much. The language of it is incredible. So
I think for me, Orpheus is a movie that, between this and Beauty and the Beast, I would say I prefer Beauty and the Beast, so I'm on the other side.
Yeah,
sure. But I would say that I like Orpheus more for its, could you even say effects? I guess you could say effects. I mean, 100%. That's what
the effects are unbelievable.
The effects are amazing. Beauty and the Beast is a very, they're both fantasies, but Beauty and the Beast, I kind of like more, like the set design takes me away, and like, I love the way the Beast looks. Like, it's obviously dated, but you can't help but just love it.
Oh, absolutely.
And then, like, Orpheus, the transporting between Earth and death. The other side. I don't remember it too well, but it was just it takes your breath away. It's like, wow, this was made in the 50s. It's crazy.
And Guillermo del Toro talks about this. He talks about how Beauty and the Beast influenced everyone, from Sam Raimi to Guillermo del Toro, anyone that dealt with fantastical horror or just fantastical elements.
Sure.
They take, because it's such simple tricks. Like, most of them is reverse camera, right? They
definitely do that a lot.
It's a reverse shot, and it's done with such elegance that, and again, poetry, right? Visual poetry. You remember when she walks into the hallway and the light starts coming on, and with the arms that start coming in.
That's what I was thinking of, the arms. Yep, that's exactly what I was thinking of.
Actual human arms.
Love it.
And it's unbelievable. The Beauty and the Beast part that I didn't like as much was, I thought the story was a little bit lacking, and I felt it dragged too much for my taste. But Orpheus, I felt, was the perfect balance of this, which is why I love it much more, and it really struck a chord. To this day, I still remember so many moments, visual moments, and even at some point, Jean Marais, who was Cocteau, so the director's husband, or not husband, but boyfriend, for sure. He was his lover, and they used to be lovers and collaborators. and it showed into the film, which Jean Marais is also the Beast in Beauty and the Beast.
Right. Okay,
So,
that's what looks familiar.
So same actor, Jean Marais, an exceptional star in France, right? Like huge star, all the way up to the 70s and the 80s. Like he was young here. He then, he started to make a name for himself here, and then he started to make like the kind of like entertainment flicks, 18th century entertainment flicks of France in the 70s, 80s, and Marais plays the sort of beauty because he's so beautiful, right? There's so much beauty about him so well. And at some point he relates the torture that he's about to get from the mob with marble being sculpted by a sculptor. And the way he relates it in, again, the beauty of the French language, the words that are chosen are chef's kiss.
Yes.
So,
do you know French, Adrian?
yes, I'm actually French originally.
Oh,
okay, that's fair. Because like I'm hearing you say all these names, and I'm like, my goodness, this is impressive. Okay,
No. I am. I speak both. I'm fluent in both for sure.
Very cool. Okay,
which
very.
is why
very
I was
cool.
talking about
That's what made me realize. I was like, you know this.
Yeah, it can be a language barrier.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't know, because but like when I'm seeing it, I'm like, my God, this is beauty to my ears.
Yeah.
But for someone else, I don't know if he'll get the nuances,
Yeah, that's fair.
necessarily
that's
with that.
fair.
But anyway,
cool.
Yeah,
that's great. All right, we'll move on to the next one.
Number 5.
There he is. There it is. Nathan will talk about this one for me now. So Nathan did a great and amazing visual essay on this.
Oh, thank you. It's old, so there's like
it's old
some
and
things
it's
that have
great.
changed.
I feel like it perfectly encapsulates without spoiling, which I don't know how you've done that. I'm going to try not to do that.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's because the movie is a spoiler, right? So Diabolique, to make it short, you haven't seen it, Harrison, right?
No.
Diabolique is my favorite horror film of all time.
Oh, okay? I love that. I love hearing that.
and it's and that's saying a lot, right? With all of these brilliant masterpieces of horror out there. Mm-hmm. But Diabolique is again by French master Clouzot, who made my number 10, Wages of Fear, right? And he's made this horror film. So now the little bit of tidbit backstory behind it is that Hitchcock wanted the rights to that novel, and I know Nathan already knows this. He talks about it in his essay.
No, yeah, go ahead.
But Hitchcock wanted the rights to the book, to the novel of which Diabolique is based on, and he thought that he really he wanted it so badly that he made sure that he was there before anyone else. And believe it or not, I think a few hours earlier, or was it like days earlier?
I'm pretty sure it was hours. I can't remember,
earlier.
But I want to say it was that close.
Hours earlier, Clouzot got the rights to Diabolique. Now, you have to remember the context of which this was. This was in 1954. In 1954, Hitchcock is about to be at the peak of his game, right? Like, I believe that Vertigo or North by Northwest was out, right?
54 was Rear Window and Dial M for Murder. I'm pretty sure those two were.
So,
54.
but was North
but
by
still the peak of North by Northwest. North by Northwest, I think, is late 50s because Psycho was after North by Northwest.
Psycho was 1960 for sure.
Yeah.
But
I think North by Northwest was like 58 or 59.
Gotcha. So Hitchcock was going to be Rear Window. I mean, he's at the peak of his game. And so was Clouzot, who had done The Raven, was a masterpiece of the 40s during the war, incredible film. And he had made a bunch of films. Some of his films in the 40s late 40s and early 50s weren't as successful. He made films like The Spies, Les Espions, which is a very downgrade from everything else that he's done. But he buys the rights for Diabolique, and Hitchcock is pissed. And then Clouseau makes Diabolique, and Diabolique comes out, and Hitchcock sees Diabolique and cannot believe how good it is. He says from his own account, like from his own words, and I'm like, it's almost like, don't quote me on this, but it's almost a quote. He said that someone has surpassed him, and that's Henri-Georges Clouzot. Like, he has made the better movie of his entire career. And he, at this point, needs to rival his competitor. And he makes Psycho because of that. Psycho was made in excitement for competition.
Yeah.
With his French cohort.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a little bit of the story of how Psycho was made, who then rivalized Diabolique and obviously became much more successful and is just as good. I mean, you could argue that it's just as good, right? And Psycho,
absolutely,
one of the best horror films of all time. Diabolique, one of the best horror films of all time. But the fact that they would keep looking at each other's work, the French and the Americans, and not just them, but the Italians and the Japanese, we don't do that much anymore. That it's starting to get a little bit of a renaissance with like Korean cinema, and I mean Netflix acquiring all of these different properties from all over the world, which is kind of nice.
Mm-hmm.
And it's and we're getting to check out more of the foreign cinema. But for 40 years, I mean, America has really been number one and just tsunamied everything away. But back in the day, they used to look at each other's work and try to do better, and getting influence from each other, which was amazing. So it created this sort of creative cesspool, which was beautiful. So anyway, Diabolique is, again, I mean, it's I can't spoil it because it's the intrigue is the entire film. The twist and turns is the entire film. I saw it as a kid. I remember having nightmares for months.
Like that.
And a couple years ago, a few times actually, a couple years ago. It's still as terrifying, even though made in the 50s. Again, a true case study on jealousy. I won't say more.
Yeah.
And just a real testament again to the craft of Clouzot, that he is just as great as Hitchcock. It's phenomenal. Nathan, do you have more to say, or just?
Yes, I do, but I'll put it like this. I'm going to hold on to saying anything because it's going to show up on my list.
Sounds good. Let's do that.
Yeah. I'll just put it like that.
Sounds good.
All right, we'll move on to the next one.
Okay, who has seen this?
Not me.
You got me. This is the first time you got me. Dang it.
You didn't see Nathan?
I haven't seen it, but I know it's coming to Criterion, and it intrigued me because you're going to laugh at me. Is it Vittorio De Sica?
Vittorio De Sica.
Yeah, sure. So he did Bicycle Thieves and Umberto D, I believe. Yeah.
And what?
Did he do Umberto D as well?
No, yeah, he did. Absolutely.
Yeah. And absolutely. I've seen both of those movies, and I like both of those movies. And so for that, I'm like, oh, this one already has my attention.
Absolutely. So Miracle in Milan is a special film, and it's a special film. I'll give you a little context. Back in the 40s and the 50s, right? It was not just, people call it the Renaissance of Italian cinema with neorealism, right? But it wasn't that. It was the birth of Italian cinema. Before that, Italian cinema was ruled by fascist governments. Mussolini and Mussolini's son in particular was taking care of what came out and what didn't come out in Italian cinema. And before that was the silent era. I believe there was one movie called Quo Vadis from 1917 or 1918 in Italy that made a bit of a splash. And I believe some Americans of that time kind of like took from that movie to make their big epics, especially B. DeMille, films like The Last Commandments or those epics of the 20s, right? I'm talking about the original Last Commandment, right? Not obviously not the remake. So it was a very important time for Italy, not just Italian cinema, Italy as a whole, because it was creating their own identity for the first time ever. They had no identity. Their identity was villainous before that. And suddenly they have to create everything from scratch. And what better way to do that than through art, right? They had the Renaissance in the 1600s, 1500s, 1600s, and now it was time for them to renew themselves. And so in 1943, Rossellini makes Rome Open City, and that creates this whole movement that we now call neo-realism, which for Italians were not just their way to express themselves, but their way to tell the world, hey, we exist as well. This is who we are. This is what the little people are going through every day. So it dealt with poverty, and it was very serious, and it was very sad, and it was uncomfortable, right? It was cinema that was very pure and simple, and that dealt with the little people. And so you have De Sica and Visconti and Rossellini and all of these guys that pioneered that movement in the early 40s. De Sica being one of the biggest pioneers of that era. Bicycle Thieves is considered by most the greatest neorealist film of all time. So for a man that makes Bicycle Thieves, which is a very sad movie, it's a very deep and sad film, that makes Shusha, which is the film that he's made before that. Also an incredible tale with two kids going to jail. It's amazing. And then before that, he made The Children Are Watching Us, which was his debut. Also really, really good film. A little bit under the rest, but really, really good film. And then decides, against all odds, to make a neo-realist film through comedy and surrealism. No more realism in a way, right? And that was not only a huge risk, but it was so absurd as a concept. I mean, if you're going to talk about poverty and you're going to talk about the little people and the social dilemmas that they had to deal with at the time, it's got to be serious. It's got to be real. Hence the name. And he said, I am going to make this film not just a surrealist film, but it's going to be a comedy. And it's one of the most funniest neorealist films for sure, with so much heart and integrity, and still manages to touch at the heart of all of the themes that neorealism was touching. And his screenwriter was Cesare Zavattini, who has been a screenwriter since his first film, or I believe maybe he didn't write his first film, but he wrote Shusha for sure. He wrote the novel of Miracle in Milan. And so he adapted his own novel into a screenplay with the help of Suso Cecchi D'Amico, I believe her name is. She was the screenwriter star back in the 40s, Italy. Huge star. Like, she did all the Viscontis of the ancient times. She did the Rossellinis. She was a huge star. So she helped out Zavattini, who usually works alone, to collaborate on a screenplay that would become Miracle in Milan. And it's so absurd. And it's a musical. On top of that, it's a musical. They sing throughout the film, but
that's awesome.
Without it being the normal musical structure that you would expect from any film. It has musical sequences in it, and the ending inspired E.T., the bicycle ride in particular.
Oh, cool.
So it's an incredible film. It's a truly heart-wrenching and just a very touching, moving, and funny film. And it did its job perfectly. So yeah, Miracle in Milan.
Awesome.
Great. Well, I got it added to the list here.
Absolutely. That's a must for me.
All right. I believe this is your number 3.
Oof, we're getting into the big game. Okay, who has seen this? You've seen it?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So this was, at a certain point, my favorite Kurosawa and probably top 20 of all time. This This is the story of a man who decides to live the moment when everything seems to be over. He is 65 years old or 70 years old. I believe he's 70 years old. And he just learned that he has cancer. And it's over. And he realizes he's never truly lived. And that's what ikiru means in Japanese, to live. And it's Takashi Shimura, the main the actor who plays him, who was one of Kurosawa's greatest and his most loyal collaboration. No, his most loyal collaboration is obviously Toshiro Mifune, but he was the second one. He was the older. He is the Harvey Keitel. What Harvey Keitel was to Scorsese, he was that to Kurosawa. And then De Niro would be like Toshiro Mifune, right? If we were to like to parallel them together. And he makes the performance of a lifetime. And it is, as the Rogue Critic just said on the chat, one of the best melodramas ever told. And it is truly the case, and not just in content, but also in form, in structure. The structure of this film, I'm not going to go into spoilers for you, Harrison, but the structure of this film is a spoiler because it's so unusual of how you would never expect it. An hour into the film, you're like, wait, what? And it flips the script on anything that you thought a drama was like, or should be like. And again, just pure visual poetry, such a moving script, and just an incredible film all around. Nathan?
No, I agree. This actually is my favorite Kurosawa film. I'm a sucker for those messages. I mean, you were on the live stream. I mean, you were commenting on the one for 1940s, and my number one was Wonderful Life. And I love those kind of messages of like, life is so important, live it up, make it the best, make the best of what you have, make the best of any situation you're in. And Akiru is exactly that. And
it's never too late.
Yeah, exactly. Never too late. I love that message. I'm just a sucker for those kinds of plots. And so for that, Akiru, and this cover right here on the swing, that's my favorite scene of the movie.
Oh, but same. I mean,
it's beautiful.
It's impossible not to weep. Like it would be really tough not to weep at that.
Mm-hmm. You're here.
All right. Let's move on to the next one.
I mean,
nice.
Do I really have to say anything? This is film school. Obviously, everyone has seen it.
Yep. I've seen
this is film school masterclass. I mean, in a movie. This is film school in a film, right? In a bottle. I mean, it's lighting in a bottle. Every frame informs the viewer on so many layers that it hurts your brain. It's what film was made for, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, and then the rest would be cliche. I mean, of course, the performances, I mean, but there's no point in talking about this. I think like most importantly, it's a masterclass, and no wonder that we study it. Well, I've never been to film school, but for the people that went to film school, they study it, ad nauseum to really get into the most intricate details of what Hitchcock did with that camera. It's the camera speaks in this film like in no other film, and that's why it deserves that number 2, because it is a perfect film. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, do you guys have anything to add? Because
I will in a moment.
Harrison? Same? Okay, good.
I will mention it in my list.
Yeah, nice. Look at all of us. I'm wondering what movies make all 3 of our lists, so it looks like we found one.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah, we found one.
Yes.
All right.
Number 1. Let's see it.
Yes. Drum roll. This is the last one. There you go.
Hey, nice. That's fair.
So I was asked the question. Actually, I asked that question recently with a friend of mine, which was I thought it was a very interesting thought, which was, we always ask each other what our favorite film is, right? What's your favorite film? And you know, like there's the best film, right? There's the best film on every list. It's usually Citizen Kane or Rear Window or The Godfather, right? And then there's your favorite film, and your favorite film is incredibly personal. And it's the one that your heart goes to immediately, right? It's the one that your instinct immediately. What is the movie that you think of immediately when you think of your favorite film, right? So there's an answer to that question. And then there's another question. There's what film do you think is the best ever made?
Yep. It's two different answers.
It can be. It can be the same.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Or it can be a different answer. And so in the question, what do you think is the best film you've ever seen? You obviously have personal attachment to it as well, but not as much as you would with your heart film, right? So when I'm asked the question, what's your favorite film? The answer immediately is Star Wars, without a doubt in my mind, right? It is the film that made me want to make films. It is the film that made me fall in love with film. It is the film that to this day, you know, I keep on, you know, that keeps on making me weep and think.
Sure, yeah.
And, you know, there's no question that is my favorite film. And for you, Nathan, It's a Wonderful Life, without a doubt. And you, Harrison, what would it be?
Casablanca.
Yeah, I knew that. It was Casablanca. Yep. Casablanca. Right. Now the question is, what do you think is the best film you've ever seen? And the answer to that question is Seven Samurai.
I love that.
Yeah. There is no film, I believe, that has been surpassed in terms of everything that we think of what cinema is. Whether it's the epicness, whether it's the melodrama, whether it's the editing, whether it's the screenwriting, the performances, the study in honor, the end of an era, the beauty of the shots. I mean, every single frame is a painting, every single one. And the blocking, I mean, the details of the costumes, it's unbelievable how good it is. And how it goes through a breeze, and I'm just sucked in. It's a cathartic experience when I watch Seven Samurai, and I've had very few of those experiences. I can think of 3: Seven Samurai, Lawrence of Arabia, and Rocco and His Brothers by Visconti. I would say those are 3 cathartic experiences where every frame was dealt with so much passion and heart and honesty that I can't believe it. It's one of those films where it's a perfect film, and I don't believe that cinema has surpassed it. And I truly believe that it's my top 3 of all time. Number 1 being Star Wars, number 2 being E.T., 2 from the heart, and then number 3 will be Seven Samurai, and number 4 will probably be Fellini's 8.5.
Oh, nice, nice.
But that would be. So that is why it is my number 1, and that is why it is in my top 3 of all time.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah, Seven Samurai, I've only seen it one time, but everything you're saying, I mean, agreed. Agreed. I don't know. For me, I wouldn't say it's the best I've seen. I'd have to think about what the best, because I know my favorite. Yeah. I'd have to think about the best. I know that my buddy Jackson and I before have talked about The Godfather being that conversation, but it's something that I'd have to think about a little bit more, because I would even possibly say my number 1 on this list might be the best I've ever seen. So, which is funny because this is your number 1 on this list, and so that it's interesting how that worked out. But yeah, I would agree that very good movie
for sure.
I like a lot of the movies inspired.
Huh?
Oh yeah, it inspired so many movies,
like Bug's Life,
and then
Magnificent Seven.
Well, I mean, even Star Wars wasn't George Lucas inspired by Kurosawa's work?
Absolutely, especially Hidden Fortress.
Yeah, that's what it is.
It would be the structure of Hidden Fortress, but obviously Seven Samurai in its editing. The last sequence, the last fight, the last battle sequence, the editing of that sequence is what inspired the dogfight. In one of the things that inspired the dog fight in Star Wars. for sure. But yes, I mean, Kurosawa's work has inspired so many. It's unbelievable. I mean, Magnificent Seven,
Yeah.
the original and the remake.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bug's Life. I mean, there's so
And there's
many.
a lot of TV shows I've noticed. Even Mandalorian had an episode that was
Yeah,
basically just, and Clone Wars has done the same thing. So
absolutely.
yeah, and so like there are TV episodes all about that,
It's
that
immortal.
city in
And
need. Yeah.
it's immortal, and the archetypes that he created within that film, I believe that's what stayed. That's what lived on.
Hmm.
And you see it in so much of cinema that happened after, Japanese or otherwise. Let's not forget that at that time, I believe that the 50s in general belongs to Japanese cinema. And like I would say that in the 70s and onward, it's American cinema. But the 50s, Japanese cinema invented so much of what we take for granted today, especially in Rashomon, which was Kurosawa's like first outing into the world. He had done obviously a lot of films before, but that was his first like masterpiece, the one that everyone revered, the one that went to Venice and was discovered in Venice, and then was nominated for an Academy Award in the foreign section, which no Japanese film had ever done before, because no one was really aware of Japanese cinema at that point. Even Ozu, people were not really that aware. I mean, they started to become aware thanks to Kurosawa. I was like, wait a second, there's this whole world out there. Mizoguchi, Kineto Shineda. I don't know if I believe that was like more late 50s, but still, those that film Rashomon like created so much of the language. Lens flare, for example, is one of them. Without Rashomon, you don't have the lens flare. He was the first one who pointed the camera at the sun. But before that, they thought that the footage would burn or the camera would be broken, and they didn't want to risk it because it was so expensive. And Kurosawa said, "Fuck it," and did it. And tracking shots that were sweeping tracking shots that were never done before. On location shooting in the forest that was rarely done before. There's so much that we owe to Japanese cinema and to Kurosawa in particular. And so yeah,
Great.
Well, that's a great list you got here.
Thank you.
All right. We'll move on to Nathan's list.
Look at that.
Oh, number 10.
Yeah, so I was laughing at your number 10 being Wages of Fear, because I was like, hey, H.G. Clouseau both making a number 10 spot, and then I wasn't expecting it made your top number 5. I wasn't surprised at all, because yeah, this honestly is a film that well, first I want to preface my list by saying I had 4 honorable mentions, and all 4 of them were movies I had only seen once, and so I only decided to include this top 10. These are all movies I've seen at least twice, and so they're movies that I know I love, whereas the ones that are the honorable mentions, I love them, but I want to make sure, I want to revisit them before it's an official in the top 10. But I mean, Diabolique was kind of revolutionary for my film journey, because I was fairly, I hate saying fairly anti-foreign film, and it was solely because I hadn't seen foreign films, and I just had the classic attitude of I don't want to read subtitles the whole time. And I remember the night I won't go into Diabolique too much. I think Adrian did a great job at talking about the movie itself. I'll just kind of talk about my experience with it. But I remember scrolling through Filmstruck back when it was a thing, before the Criterion Channel. It was Filmstruck, and I was scrolling through it, and I see this movie, this French horror film, and I don't remember if in the description it compared it to Psycho or anything, but whatever it was, it grabbed my attention. It was probably 10 o'clock at night, and I sat through the whole entire thing, and it's the only foreign film to date, maybe except for Parasite. No, I don't think I did it with Parasite. I want to say it's the only foreign film to date that I watched, and the very next day I watched it again, because I was living with my sister at the time, and I just told her, I was like, Lindsay, this movie's insane. It's like basically French Psycho, if you will. I mean, it's not like Psycho, but you know why it's like Psycho. Yeah. And I was like, it's basically like Psycho, but it's a French film, and it's a short film, so you don't have to worry about like it being, because like I'm trying to like, convert her to foreign films or whatever. And so we watch it, and she loved it too. And it was something that we both just loved. and I saw it. I've seen it 3 times. It was all in 2018, so it's due for a rewatch. But just in 2018, I fell in love with it. It's a weird movie to fall in love with because it's pretty twisted, but it's outstanding at accomplishing what it set out to accomplish. And I mean, I made a whole video essay on it, so you could just watch that if you want to hear more about it.
On that note,
Yeah.
I feel like the video essay, Harrison, you haven't seen it, but I feel like that will probably pump you even more to watch it because Nathan balances humor and entertainment really, really well because it's short. First of all, it's not a long video, and it's very hard to balance it all out in a visual essay, especially when there's so many out there. And I ended up really liking the video in itself was really well made. So I got to enjoy it even more than I already did. But on top of that, I listened to it from beginning to end, which I rarely do in visual.
Well, thank you very much.
And also the montage, the edits, like the way you put I don't know how long does that take you to do that? Like
it's a long process. That's why I don't do video essays too much because it takes a long time. But that was one of the first one. I think that was the second one I had made because I had made a Planet of the Apes one. But that was when I was getting into foreign films. And so I introduced Diabolique. And when I first say it's a French film in the video, I say something like, I hope I don't lose you. Like, don't click off the video just because
it was hilarious.
Yeah. And it was because
it was hilarious.
Well, the funny thing is I'm saying that because in my own mind, I used to be like that, where I hear it's a foreign film and I'm like, oh, no way. And so I was a part of my old self was bleeding into the script for the video. And so I was genuinely saying, please, people, like I was like that. But I love the movie, so I think you will too. Joey
Lumberas agrees with me in the chat.
Yeah, Joey's a good friend of mine, and and then Lindsay, good, all good friends. And Joey we've talked about Diabolique before, and yeah, I'm happy that video essay actually did its job. So that's amazing. But I'm ready for my number 9.
All right, number 9.
So I love the reaction. So I think it's funny because as Adrian, as you were going through your list, I was just so grateful for all the world cinema you had included. I'm going to say right now, number 10, unfortunately, is the only foreign film I have on my whole list.
It is what it is.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, so The Bridge, I don't know if you've seen The Bridge, but that's a 1959 movie.
No.
That was an honorable mention, but I've only seen it once, so I didn't want to include it. But
wait, The Bridge by who?
So it's directed by Bernhard Wicki. It's like it's a German film, and it's a Criterion. It's on the collection.
Interesting.
But yeah, it's a very good movie. Yeah. I mean, very underrated movie. I learned about it from someone's Criterion Hall on YouTube. But anyway, sorry, Singing in the Rain. So yeah, Singing in the Rain. It was
best movie of all time.
It's just a really good movie, and it's one that I recently watched in theaters for an anniversary showing. And seeing it in theaters is what honestly qualified it for this list, because before it was like, oh yeah, Singing in the Rain's obviously, it's obviously a good movie, but seeing it in the theaters, I just had the cheesiest smile on my face, and it just makes you happy. The whole thing makes you so happy. Ashley, fair enough. It's just so good. You can't not like Singing in the Rain. Like, even if there's something you don't like about it, you have to admit the movie as a whole is like, it's Singing in the Rain. It's just good,
Amazing.
What
do you mean you don't like? Who doesn't like Singing in the Rain?
I know. Yeah. Hopefully there's no one.
I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, it's just perfect. That's one of those untouchable films. It's just what it is. It's again lightning in a bottle. We talked a lot about that today.
Absolutely. And I think we'll talk about it even more because, I mean, I'm biased, but my whole list, I'm like, oh, so good.
But is champ. Yeah.
Harrison, you've seen Singing in the Rain, right?
Yes, I have.
Okay, cool.
Yes, I absolutely love the music in it and the dancing, nice. And the set design too, especially in the like the casino part in the end of the movie. I didn't really like it. It's when Gene Kelly is talking to a director or something, and it has like a casino and all that. I love the set design. It just didn't make sense with the movie, but other than that, I thought it was great.
Nice. Well,
good morning.
Yeah, I love that song. Okay, so my number 8 is unfortunately the only Western that made it onto the list, but there it is. I thought it was so funny. Before the live stream started, we were talking about Westerns, and The Searchers and High Noon both came up. 310 to Yuma was an honorable mention, but I need to see it again before I put it on the top 10. But High Noon is it's screaming Nathan Hale. Like I love it in any sort of movie where your main protagonist is in a situation where they've come to the end, they know they've been outsmarted, or either that, or they know they're at the end of the journey. Like basically they know they're going to lose. I think it's the reason that Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 is my favorite of the series. It's also a reason I liked, I mean, talk about modern film, it's also the reason I like Avengers Infinity War, because they know that they basically have lost the battle. Empire Strikes Back, they've lost. You know, like I love situations where the main character is lost. High Noon is all about the sheriff who thinks that he has the town on his side, and it's a short run time, but in that short run time, you find he's really on his own. And time is a character in the movie. The ticking clock is a main character, just almost just as much as Gary Cooper, it seems like. But I just love the sweat, the tension of knowing that these villains are getting closer and closer, and he's getting more and more desperate. And I just think that's one of those movies that it doesn't need to be any longer than it is. It accomplishes exactly what it's going for in its runtime. And what I got was just very satisfying. Now, this one I've only seen twice, actually, but it's one that on the second one, it solidified it. And I was like, wow, yeah, no, that's an all-time great. I love it. I'm guessing Adrian has seen it.
Yeah.
I'll give,
because you mentioned
I'll
it.
say two things. The first thing is the shot on Gary Cooper when Noon is about to hit.
Yes.
And the camera propels itself into the sky.
Well, it's basically that cover almost.
Like that cover, pretty much.
Yeah.
And no one is in that town.
I love it.
And he is alone in the highest angle you can have.
Yeah.
Which represents the entire film.
And not to be punny, but the High Noon, you're actually high up, and
not
to be punny, but I mean, come on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And actually that two things. The first thing is, did you know that you've seen Once Upon a Time in the West, right?
Yes.
The beginning of Once Upon in the West is a direct homage to High Noon. Did you realize?
Wow. No, I didn't. It makes sense.
With the three villains and with the three villains with the hat, and it's taking its time, and they're waiting for the train.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
You know, and it's waiting for the train, and there's the sweat that comes in.
That
is the direct steal, and homage, right? / homage from the beginning in High Noon when the villains are getting ready, right? They're getting ready to take the train on the platform. Once Upon a Time in the West has that exact sequence at the beginning. And it was a deliberate homage. And the other thing I will say is High Noon made me discover Fred Zinnemann, the director.
He's amazing. Yeah.
Who I didn't really know.
Yeah.
He's one of those Hollywood, like a golden age Hollywood underrated filmmakers. And absolutely. So I then watched From Here to Eternity.
I was going to say that was an honorable mention, but I haven't seen it more than once, so I didn't put it on the list. But I love From Here to Eternity.
One of my favorite all-American Hollywood films of all time. This and High Noon actually are two of my all-time American Hollywood films of all time.
Oh, awesome.
And The Day of the Jackal, and A Man for All Seasons.
Yeah.
Discovering his career after that was a pure joy, and it's all thanks to High Noon. So yeah.
Hey, Michelle. Michelle's my friend on here too.
You got all your friends here.
This is great. Yeah, no, I'm on a Discord chat, and I just threw in the chat, hey everyone, I'm on a live stream right now. Come on in. And so it looks like they're all trickling in right now. This is amazing. Harrison, have you seen High Noon?
I have not. No.
Okay. Yeah, no, I love it. It's such a good one, obviously. But okay, my number 7 is like the complete opposite of High Noon. It is a romance film. Have any of you seen this one?
No.
This is a very underrated one. I think the only reason that this one has the praise, or not the praise, the only reason it has the attention it has, the only reason I know about it is because it won Best Picture. Back in 1956, it's made in 55. But Ernest Borgnine is the main actor, main character. And because of this movie, I have grown to love Ernest Borgnine films. He's in From Here to Eternity. He's just in From Here to Eternity. I won't say who he is, but and Marty is all about a single man. He's a butcher, works at a meat shop, and it seems like everyone and their mother, they're always so on top of him for why he isn't married. He's in his 30s, and so and he's growing older and older each day, of course, and so he's kind of at that point where, you know, people are wondering, why hasn't he gotten married? You know, he's a grown man, he should be married. And I think it teaches a really good lesson about society's view on dating and being married. And Marty's happy the way he is, kind of thing. And he's like, you know, like when the right one comes, the right one will come. But in the movie, he meets another girl who also isn't married, and she's just the sweetest girl. And she's in the same situation as he is, where she's older, not married or anything. And I think the reason I love Marty so much is I just think it's a really good representation of the dating scene and just kind of like letting it happen, you know, like when it's time, you know, the right one will come and there's no reason to rush it. He's even working at the butcher shop and one of his customers are like, Marty, why aren't you married yet? And he's like, I don't like, look, just let me give you your meat. Like, it's just, it's a fun movie to watch. And it's something that I saw in high school, and then I saw it again a few years later, and one of those rewatches that just solidified it, kind of like High Noon, where I was just like, yep, nope, this is an amazing movie. But I know that a lot of people don't like it as much as I do, so I don't want to build it up too much, but I would highly recommend watching it.
I'm gonna put it on the watch list. I know about it, but
yeah,
but I've never seen it.
Nice. Okay, so my number 6 is a little movie called Vertigo. Probably have never heard of it.
No.
Yeah, no. So Vertigo is a movie that the first time I saw it, it was a little bit of a Citizen Kane syndrome, where with both movies I saw them and I was like, this is the movie that everyone is in love with, the critically acclaimed movie. And granted, I saw them both in high school, so I was younger and everything, but both movies I had that kind of the same attitude. I liked both movies, but I wasn't as big on them. The other thing that both movies have in common is they're both movies that every time I rewatch them, I love them more and more, down to the point where they're both just absolutely amazing. So Vertigo, Alfred Hitchcock, James Stewart. Alfred Hitchcock did really good at having James Stewart star in roles that we weren't expecting him to star in. You know, early on in his career, he was in a lot of Frank Capra movies, or any movie for that matter, where he generally played the good guy, the likable character. Whereas in Vertigo, he has his moments where he's not very likable. It's almost like teetering on the side of villainous, if you will, where it's just, it seems like it's against the typecast of the kind of person that James Stewart plays. So that's one reason I like it. Another reason I like it, I mean, the score is amazing. It's the same person. I'm going to quickly, I always forget his name. It's Bernard
Herrmann.
Bernard, thank you. Yes, so, yep, same one who also did Psycho.
And Citizen Kane.
And Citizen, hey, I didn't even know that. There you go.
Whoa.
That's awesome. Okay. Now I'm glad. Now I'm even happier about this connection I have with the two movies. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But he's honestly, like, I would compare him to the John Williams of the old Hollywood era, because he made so many great compositions. But it's, again, one of those movies that everyone kind of knows about. So I don't know what more I can say. Do any of you guys want to throw in a word before I move on?
Yeah, on the note of the John Williams, it was one of the only ones at that time who took the time to actually make a score. And by that, I mean an original score. Most composers of the time, right? Most Westerns were all pretty much composed by Max Richter, right? It's one composer. Like, you look at any John Ford film, or any just Westerns of that time, and it's composed by Max Richter. And you're like, how the hell does he have time to sit down with the director and to think about themes and tunes. Well, as a matter of fact, he doesn't. He doesn't do that. He makes music, right? He makes a soundtrack over. I mean, he creates a score over the entirety of the film, and then at certain moments, he'll like up the beat, down the beat, depending on the action or what the scene entails. Very few were composers like Morricone or John Williams, Clint Mansell, and everyone, afterwards, that Danny Elfman and everyone that took that. But Bernard Herrmann is one of the few that I know that took the liberty in a way. And there was no time. John Ford made 4 movies a year. There was no time. He barely seen his films. He was barely in the editing room. Same thing with the composers. They don't have time to discuss what the character needs at that moment for this, they don't have time for that. And so it's a machine. It's a business, especially in that time, and especially in the US, especially in Hollywood. And Bernard Herrmann with Orson Welles and Hitchcock, which were kind of the outliers of the golden age of Hollywood. He would then compose some of the greatest scores ever put to film. Sure. Because they took that time. They took the time to be artists. So that's one take I will say on that. And on Vertigo as a whole, I agree with you. I had the same experience. At first I was like, and I still feel like the ending was a little bit it ended too quickly. There was something about
I'd agree
the way he died, and he's just pushed, and then that was it, and it just ended, and it was a bit weird. But but as a whole, it's an incredible psychosexual drama for the time that was impossible to do. The colors, the green, the reds, I mean, it all informs so much on the character's psyche. So it's a huge psychological drama. And on top of that, it gave us the dolly zoom. So, I mean,
yes,
we are.
Yes,
we
absolutely.
are privileged. Yeah. Spoiled. There you go.
Yeah.
Harrison?
I have it on my list, so I'll save it for that. But
okay, cool.
Gotcha.
All right, so my number 5 is the Orson Welles pick of all the selections. Have either of you seen this one?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. This was another one. Liked it the first time, loved it the second time. I would say that this is my favorite noir film ever. I mean, at the moment, at least, you can make an argument that some other movies are noir, like modern noir or whatever. But as far as like black and white noir goes, this is my favorite. And fun fact, I believe it was the first movie ever to actually show a driving car instead of like having the car in the studio with the green screen and everything. Yeah, because when I was watching, I was like, that's real. Like that's not a studio. You can tell. It's obvious, but that's not what I like about this movie. I think what I like about this movie is just the dishonesty all around, and it's scary too. It's I don't know if disturbing is the best word, but it's a movie that gets to you, and I feel like they didn't hold back on some scenes. There's a person that's strangled, and you see an up close shot of them, and it's scary. It made my heart skip a beat when I saw it, and all the performers are amazing. I love the ending, and it's actually my favorite Orson Welles directed film, beating Citizen Kane. So that gives you an idea of how much I love Touch of Evil.
I agree with that.
Hey, thanks, thank you.
Incredible, immaculate framing, immaculate blocking. Those low angle frames, the blocking, the oneer in the room when they all talk, and when the whole fucking thing happens, when Orson Welles comes in, there's like 7 of them, and the way they're framed, it's unbelievable. And it's and yeah, I feel like it's incredible. The Rogue Critic asked if The Touch of Evil is the last film, if we think that it's the last film of noir. I feel like it's one of the last of that era before the neo-noir of Chinatown and Taxi Driver and all of that, for sure. But yeah, I mean, it's immaculate. And Orson Welles is demented in this. He's incredible.
Oh yeah, he's so good.
Performances.
Oh yeah.
I love it. Okay, so my number 4 is Dial M for Murder. So this is an Alfred Hitchcock movie that isn't as well known as, you know, the Vertigos, the Rear Windows, North by Northwests, the Psychos, the Birds, like his biggest movies. But I feel like it's that tier right below it, where once you start to get into Hitchcock, you discover Dial M for Murder, and then it's like considered one of the good ones. Hey, great list there. But Dial M for Murder, really like it. One of the first Hitchcock I ever saw. I saw The Birds first as a kid, and I want to say it was either North by Northwest or Dial M that was the second and third watch. It was one of those two, and saw him in high school. I'm just really impressed with the way this movie pans out. It's based on a stage play, and so I can't give the credits completely to Hitchcock, but I can still give a lot of credit to him for the fact that he adapted a stage play into a movie. I mean, it's one of those one location films. There's more than one, but dominantly one location film. And I just like the way it all pans out. It's the perfect example of murder gone wrong kind of thing. And I also love Ray Milland and Grace Kelly. And so seeing them both in a movie together is a treat on its own. But I think I like mostly how meticulously planned it is, how down to making sure that someone doesn't touch something because they'll get their fingerprints on it kind of thing. And it's all just a very well-planned murder, but at the same time, it's not. And so it's just, love this one. Have you guys seen this one?
I've seen this one.
I have not.
Oh, nice.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Harrison, is it on your list, or do you want to say a word or two about what you like?
It's actually not on my list. It barely missed it, but
Nice.
just saw it for the first time a couple months ago. Love the twist in it. It's a great twist. Oh, yeah. There's the poster.
There's the poster.
Yeah, I think it's underrated, like you said. I think more people need to see it. And remind me the name of the lead again, the main guy. What's
it's
his
Ray
name?
Milland.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything with him before, and I loved his acting. It was incredible.
Oh, he's amazing. He's like Jimmy Stewart's twin. I think they look alike, especially when he was younger. They were in a movie together, and it's like they look like brothers. It's crazy.
Oh, that's great. But yeah, great movie.
Cool. All right. So my number 3 is the Billy Wilder movie that made it onto the list. So Adrian had Some Like It Hot. I think you can make a case. There are so many Billy Wilder movies that are amazing, but my personal favorite is Witness for the Prosecution. When I first saw this one, I was in a phase where I was getting into Charles Lawton's work, and I was also trying to get more into Billy Wilder. So when I found out they teamed up, I was like, hey, perfect. I'm excited for this. So I was already going in with high expectations, and it was a movie that delivered on those high expectations with several twists in it. I also love the subgenre of courtroom movies. I think in another life, I would be a lawyer. It just fascinates me. And this movie, the way it pans out, it's based on an Agatha Christie novel. I haven't yet read it. It's a very short story. It's on my to-read list, but I plan on just like listening to it because it's like 45 minutes. That's how short it is. But I kind of just want to see how it compares to the movie kind of thing. But it's one of those movies that I can't say too much about because there are twists and everything. And I think it's just something that you have to press play on and just watch it all the way through. I'm taking it. Neither of you have seen it.
That's the one I haven't seen. No.
Nice. Okay, cool. Well, that's on the next watch list for Billy Wilder. If you guys are looking for
absolutely, it's on my list.
Just wrote it down.
It's on my list for sure.
Okay, so my number 2 is a very fitting number 2 because it's the same as Adrian's number 2. And this movie, Rear Window, is my second favorite Hitchcock, just behind Psycho. I almost said Sicko. Just behind Psycho. I think so. A few things that I'll add. Everything Adrian said is amazing. The lightning in the bottle and the framing, the colors, it's all amazing. Just a few fun things with Rear Window. So I had a short-lived series on my channel called 11 out of 10 movies, where I would choose a movie that I love more than a 10 out of 10. And I basically just give it a review of it. I say why it's an 11 out of 10. And this was the movie that started off that series. So that's a fun little fact. But Rear Window, a few things that stick with me is I love the jazzy score. I mean, you don't get too much of a score, but when you do, it's pretty jazzy. I like that. I love the whole neighborhood. I love how each apartment is its own character, and I mean, you have the young and free girl on the poster right there, where she's always dancing in her apartment, having guys over. You have the newlyweds. You have the lady who sculpts in her front yard. You have the couple that like sleeps on their balcony, and then there's the Miss Lonely Heart, I think is what they nicknamed her, the one who just wants to have a date, and so much to love. And then obviously you have the neighbor that is notorious, the one that's suspicious of everything. But I think that James Stewart does great here, and I think the final 15-20 minutes are that is where the movie just excels for me, because the whole movie is great, but it builds up to that final few minutes. And when those final few moments happen, that's where the master of suspense kicks in and does his thing, because it is very suspenseful, very enjoyable, and I love it. This is also one I've seen in the theaters, and it was great in the theaters. It's great on my TV, wherever I'm watching it. I love Rear Window. And I know that Harrison has it on his list, so should I just move on to my number one?
I think we'll just move on. Yep.
Okay, yeah. So my number one movie of the 1950s is 12 Angry Men. 12 freaking Angry Men. Not only is it my number one of the 50s, it's not my number one of all time, but it's close to my number one of all time. It's I think it's number 4, and it really is. I might consider it the best movie I've ever seen. Back to that conversation, Adrian. It's just a movie that it understood the task. It excelled at it. I love every actor in it. I like them. I like some a little more because they're Twilight Zone. They later would star in the Twilight Zone, and I love the Twilight Zone, of course. But my favorite kind of character type is the one that never backs down from their beliefs, that holds their grounds, and even though they're swayed, they could be swayed, they stand by their beliefs and they don't change their opinion or anything. And that's exactly what Henry Fonda's juror number 8 is in this movie. He's always willing to hear the other side, and I love that about him. He's not closed-minded, he's not prideful, but at the same time, he has his stance and he wants to stand by it because he's not yet convinced. And I appreciate that. And it's something that has inspired me in my own life, where, when there's something I believe in, rather than just give in right away, stand by it, kind of thing. Stand by what you believe in. But just the way this whole movie elevates, it's kind of similar to High Noon, where the sweat is present, the angles are present, the hot room, and then it gets cooler, the fan starts working, blah blah blah. But you can tell the tensions are rising, and I just love the conversation happening. Another movie that's very dominantly one location film, but everything about it I love, and every time I rewatch it I love it as well. So that is my number one.
Have you seen it, Harrison?
No.
Really? Harrison, this is my highest recommendation.
Okay.
I'll just say that not only is the tension palpable and clear in the writing and the performances and the blocking and all that, but also in the shot choices. It starts out in very wide angles, and as we progress into the film, we get into closer and closer and closer angles, and until the very end, where we're very claustrophobic. And it has that claustrophobic feeling.
Absolutely.
with these tight shots. And so the blocking informs that, the shots inform that, the performances and the writing all together working in symphony. One of the reasons why it is one of the greatest films of all time, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good job. That's a fantastic list.
Hey, thank you. Thank you very much. Love the 50s.
Oh.
Right. All right, so now we'll do my list. So I know Nathan has to go pretty soon, so I'll go pretty quick through it.
Okay.
Yeah, I can stay on for another 22 minutes, 20, whatever, up until the 50 mark. I don't know what time zones you both are in, but the 50 mark of the hour.
Sounds good. At high noon, right? No.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So we've already kind of talked about this one, but this is my number 10, Vertigo.
Nice.
Love the use of color, especially the color green. I really like the use of that. You don't see green too much in movies. You mainly see red, other colors. I also love the scene where Jimmy Stewart, he's like kind of hallucinating, like there's the crazy colors going on behind him.
The dream sequence, like the nightmare
the dream sequence.
Oh, that's like my favorite scene. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, that's incredible. And like I mentioned earlier, graphic designer, so I love the Saul Bass poster. It's incredible. I've recreated it several times in my classes for school. It's a great movie. I don't know what else to add, but yeah,
so good. Yep.
Here we go. All right. Let's go to my number 9. So, The 10 Commandments.
Nice.
Love this movie. Just rewatched it recently, and it catapulted it. This is the last time I watched it. I was like, it's okay, but this time around, I really recognized the real work Cecil B. DeMille put into the movie, and who doesn't love Charlton Heston, right? He's an incredible actor. Love this movie. I haven't seen the original. I'd like to see that at some point.
It's nowhere near as good.
No.
Oh, nice. Good to know.
But it's interesting. And in 10 Commandments, I mean, the special effects are unbelievable. The thing that was done in the 50s, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And this is one of my favorite biblical stories too. As a kid, I loved Prince of Egypt and
favorite animated of all time for me.
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
I would go Prince of Egypt for my favorite biblical film. Absolutely.
Oh,
yeah.
Love
and Ben-Hur. I mean,
Ben-Hur too? Yeah, that's the two Charlton Heston ones, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Can add Ben-Hur. I haven't seen that one yet. No.
Oh yeah, there you go.
That one was my favorite of the Charlton Heston biblical.
Nice.
But yeah, love 10 Commandments. Don't know
Awesome.
if that's bad. My number 8, White Christmas.
Very cool.
I haven't seen that one.
Oh, you got to check it out. This is probably one of my favorite Christmas movies. I watched it for the first time last year for my podcast, actually, and love the set design, love the colors, like the color red. They use it really well in this movie. Love the music. Bing Crosby's got an amazing voice, one of my favorite singers. And never seen a Danny Kaye movie before, but he's hilarious. I love to see more of his movies. I believe he's in Secret Life of Walter Mitty, the original one.
He is, yeah. I haven't seen it, but I know he is.
Okay, yeah. He was hilarious, and I love the scene in particular where Bing Crosby and Danny Kaye, they recreate the number that the sisters just did. So like they're wearing the
sisters.
All that. Yeah.
Yep. That's a famous song in my household because I have all sisters, and so they're always singing it.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm like, no, not this song again.
Not again.
Yeah.
But anyways, great Christmas movie, great set design. Love the Vista Vision. That's incredible. Yeah.
Putting it on my watch list.
There you go. Yeah.
I recommend it.
Watch it for Bing Crosby's voice alone.
Oh, I love Bing Crosby.
Basically, yeah. He's a great highlight of it. Right. Next one. So 7 Samurai. This is the.
Hey, nice.
Yep. I added a different.
Oh man, I ruined it for us, guys. It looks like Rear Window's still the only movie on all our lists.
That's right.
Yeah, sorry.
No. I love this movie. Like I mentioned earlier, I love the movies it also inspired, like Bug's Life, one of my favorite Pixar movies. Very underrated. Don't know why no one likes that one.
Absolutely. It's a brilliant film, and yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
But anyways, back to this one. I love Toshiro Mifune's character, the one with the giant sword. He's hilarious and awesome at the same time. He's kind of a bumbling doofus, but he's like really cool too. So I really love that. And you mentioned his name earlier. He played the main in Ikuru. I don't remember his name.
No, that's Takeshi Shimura, who plays the mentor in this one.
Right. I was going to say
the high samurai.
I like him a lot too. He's really good in this movie. Like I love the scene with him strategizing how they're going to take out their soldiers. That was really cool.
Bandits.
But yeah, 7 Samurai.
The one and only.
Peter Pan.
I'm glad. Okay, before you say anything, I'm so glad a Disney movie made the list because, like,
Yes.
I was looking at mine and I was like, "There's a serious lack of Disney animation."
I
and, like,
agree.
yeah, and so thank you, Harrison, for taking one for the team because this, we
Yes.
needed some Disney.
And it's a great one too.
Yeah, agreed.
Yes. It's also not the only Disney movie on this list.
Yes,
Ooh.
love to hear that.
Cinderella? Okay, go.
No, actually,
Lady and the Tramp, I'm guessing.
I can't remember. I made the list like a month
Okay,
ago.
nice. Okay, cool. We'll see.
But anyways, I love the Peter Pan storyline. You know, it's really magical how they go from kind of boring, dull London to this amazing Neverland, and the beautiful animation for that. And I just love the Lost Boys. I always wanted a secret hideout like that. I thought that was really cool. And I also like Hook. You know, it's not technically a sequel to this, but I also like the continuation of the Peter Pan story.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. And Captain Hook, he's just classic in this movie and in the other one. But
have you been on the ride for Peter Pan at Disneyland?
yes, that is one of my favorite rides, but it's always super long wait.
It's so long.
What day.
Yeah, no, it's definitely like at every my family, we're a Disney family, and so it's definitely like an every other trip kind of ride where you don't have to go on it every time, mostly because of the long wait. But when you are on it, you're like, gosh dang it, this ride's so like I love looking down at London, seeing the lights when you're on the ship. Like it's amazing.
Yes. Have you been to Disney, Adrian?
I've been to Disneyland. I've never been on the Pan ride, but it sounds amazing.
Next time. Yeah, next time.
For
it's
sure.
A great ride. But like I said, it's like an hour and a half wait. So keep
it's
that in
so
mind.
long.
That's probably why I didn't go. I don't remember exactly what happened, but that's probably why.
Yep. But anyways, love Peter Pan. Great story. All right, the next one, Singing in the Rain.
Yeah, nice. Awesome.
I already kind of mentioned earlier, but I just love the music in this movie, especially Gene Kelly. He's got a great voice. I love that. And I really like the scene with them all together singing "Good Morning." That's a great scene
arguably the I want to say arguably the best scene, but then there's so many good scenes, so it's hard to say.
I know.
Yeah, but it's a great scene.
Best scene for me, for sure.
Yeah,
most memorable scene for me.
Yeah, I love that, and then obviously the "Singing in the Rain" itself scene is great, but they're just so good.
Yeah, so good, and I love the backstory too. Well, not backstory, but the story itself about Hollywood transitioning from silent to sound. Yeah. I'm always fascinated by that era of Hollywood.
Damien Chazelle is making Babylon, which is about that.
Oh, okay.
The transition from silent to sound. It's in post-production, I believe. Expected to be released either by the end of the year or the beginning of next.
And Tobey Maguire plays Charlie Chaplin in it.
That's right, no?
Yeah, they just came out with that a few weeks ago. I was like, that is amazing.
Yeah.
I'm definitely watching that.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Oh, wow. But anyways, I love Singing in the Rain.
Singing.
All right, next, North by Northwest.
Nice.
Yes. Just barely made it because it's a 1959 movie, so almost a 60s movie. Many consider it kind of a pseudo James Bond film before James Bond came out. I really like that aspect because I'm a big James Bond fan. And love Cary Grant. He's my favorite actor of all time. Just absolutely love him and his acting and all that. He's great.
Yeah.
And the iconic, Mount Rushmore. Love Mount Rushmore. Always wanted to see it. Really cool. And I just noticed that Hitchcock's on.
Yeah, isn't that funny? I love how he fits himself into that poster.
Egotistical much? No.
Yeah. That's like the funny thing with Hitchcock. He was just like, everyone knew who he was. And so I think it boosted his movies, I would say, just by including himself on the poster, because it's like, oh, that's a new Hitchcock movie. So
there's also about North by Northwest. There's something about the first 30 minutes. It's probably the funniest 30 minutes I've ever seen in an American film of that era. It is laugh out loud. You've seen it, right? Obviously, Nathan.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. It's so funny. Like every mimic that Cary Grant does. And it's the first time that I always saw Cary Grant as the romantic, the suave, right? The leading man.
Yep.
But here, and he wasn't trying to be funny. But well, no, he was, but without trying to be. And he was so funny. That whole sequence at the airport, he gets taken, the taxi, then he goes to the house. He's like,
I love, yeah. When they first take him, they like put their hands on his shoulder, and he's like, "What is this?" Like he's right away, he's like, "What is this?" I love
and then
that.
during the car ride, and he's asking questions, and then he's drunk, and then he's at the police station. I've rarely laughed this hard. I thought that was the first 30 to 40 minutes were absolute genius.
Yes.
Then it became a little bit, I thought a little bit like, okay, we're in the story now, and now you're part of this. And then I feel like it picks back up at Mount Rushmore right before, and then the perfect transition at Mount Rushmore when he picks the girl up and they're in the train, and then the train going through the tunnel is innuendo for penetration,
absolutely,
which they couldn't do at the time. And he basically, like, the code was probably looking at this and we're like, oh, there's nothing we can say. Really, really, really awesome
Hitchcock.
stuff.
Yeah, it's so funny.
Yes. Real quick, my favorite scene is when Roger, he's wearing his sunglasses inside, and the ticket guy's like, why are you wearing sunglasses inside or something like that? And he's like, because I'm allergic to stupid questions or whatever. Love that. Love the sarcasm.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on to the next one. Is Sleeping Beauty.
It's an underrated
Hey,
one.
that's what it was. Nice.
Yep, this is the other Disney one. I love the style of the animation in this movie. It's very, what would you say?
Renaissance?
Mid-century? I'd say mid-century mixed with Renaissance, because the backgrounds look like old Renaissance paintings, but the characters look like what you would see on television at the time. So it's a really beautiful blend of those two styles. I really liked that. The story's okay. What I really love is the animation in this movie. That's what really brings me back to it. I've seen it who knows how many times, but I think it's one of Disney's best and really underrated. I don't get the hate for this one.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Have you seen the proposal video where the guy redid the animated scene at the end? Yeah, it's amazing.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, so I'll just have you look it up. But he created. There was a special screening of Sleeping Beauty at the local theater, and he worked it out. He worked on this for like months. He had hired an animator and everything, and he redid the final scene. So that's all I'm going to say. Actually, go into it expecting he redid something, and it's just look up Sleeping Beauty proposal, and I'm sure you'll find it.
Okay, written that down.
Ooh, Bailey agrees with you on Sleeping Beauty. Hi, Bailey.
We're getting to number 1 or number 2?
We're on number 2. And I swear I did not plan this, guys.
Oh, no. Rear window. Oh, look at that. I was wondering if that would work out that way.
That's amazing.
We did not plan this out, I swear. It's just how it turned out.
We all agree it's the second best.
Right. It's the second best of the 50s.
Yeah, that's awesome. Wow.
Yeah. I don't have much more to add than what's already been said.
Yeah.
Great movie. I love the scene when I don't remember his name, but it's Perry Mason on the TV.
Raymond Burr, I think.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think
where he actually looks up at where Jimmy Stewart is pointing his binoculars.
So creepy.
That gave me so many chills.
Yeah, it's creepy.
It's like,
sure it's Raymond Burr.
So that really...
Yeah, it's Raymond Burr.
Okay, Raymond Burr. Okay, there you go. But yeah, enough said. I'm going to buy this on 4K because I hear it's really good in 4K.
Nice.
All right. The number 1 movie of the 1950s for me is Touch of Evil.
Oh, no way.
Yep.
Wow. I was not expecting that. That's amazing.
Yes. So I just saw it for the first time a couple weeks ago. I went to the Arthur Lyons Film Noir Festival, and this was the crowning, I guess, jewel of the evening. This was the major movie they premiered that night.
And that sounds so cool.
It was so cool, man.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
all the people in the audience were like clapping when Mildred Pierce comes on, and
Oh wow.
all it was really, really cool. And Zaza, I think is her name. I always pronounce it wrong, but when she came on too, people were like, yeah, just freaking out.
Wow.
It was
That's
amazing. I totally agree. This is way better than Citizen Kane. Don't know why no one talks about that, because way better story. And Orson Welles, like we said earlier, he's creepy, but
It's corrupt. It's just such a corrupt story, and like
yeah,
So
I don't know
corrupt.
why, but that's what makes me love it.
Well, it's just like Chinatown, like
Yeah.
it takes from
Exactly.
the same mythos. It's incredible
exactly.
for sure.
Oh, you guys are making me want to watch it again.
But yeah, I really like this movie a lot. And my favorite scene is the very, very beginning, the tracking shot that leads into the border
Yes,
crossing.
very long.
Incredible.
Yes.
With the bomb into the truck and
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
we change POVs. No, it's unthinkable. It's
so
unthinkable.
good.
There's setups in this that are unthinkable for the time. Absolutely. There's no, sorry. No, yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Harrison.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I'm excited to buy this one on 4K too. It just came out.
Oh, for sure.
Mhm.
There is the Movie Geek Productions. I'm assuming that's your friend Nathan.
Yeah, Bernardo.
So he said that his number 6 is Throne of Blood, and Throne of Blood is, I was going to put it on my list. It's so good. Have you guys seen it?
Oh, I haven't, but it's
the
like on the
Kurosawa-
radar. Yeah.
It's the Kurosawa Macbeth, and actually the best Macbeth interpretation to screen I've ever seen. Better than any other Macbeth so far, and that I've seen. And I wanted to put it on my list, but then that would have been 3 Kurosawas, and that would have just not been fair.
Hey, I have 3 Hitchcocks for what it's
I
worth.
know. I know, but I was gonna do it, and Throne of Blood was really barely missed it. It's number 11 on that list.
Yeah.
Also, there's a magnificent film that Bernardo and another one, and I feel like who said it? Someone else said it, but I'm not sure who. It's The Cranes Are Flying. So I haven't seen that one. It's by Mikhail Kalazatov, and apparently, if I were to see it, then my list would change. Apparently, from everything that I hear, it's apparently like I haven't seen it, but it's apparently that good. It's absolutely incredible. Bailey has Orpheus.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
The Orpheus. A Place in the Sun is also very good. I just saw it for the first time.
Yeah, that was very good for sure.
I was not expecting it to feel like that much like a Hitchcock film. I was not expecting that.
Oh, Bailey has Mon Oncle. Now that is Jacques Tati.
Yeah.
That's the French comedian of the time. Well, like he's like the French Chaplin in a way. Just very, very tall, like extremely tall. And Jour de Fête and Playtime, and they even just made like 5-6 comedies. Like it's part of the French comedies. And they're incredible. Mon Oncle is also incredible. So she has that in her list. Oh, she has Hiroshima Mon Amour. Hiroshima Mon Amour, Hiroshima My Love, which is from Alain Resnais. I don't know. Have you guys seen that one?
Mm-hmm.
That was the first Alain Resnais film. It was a French New Wave, right? Oh, wait, actually, is that 59? Wait, or is that 60s? Maybe that's a bit before the New Wave. Anyway, it's this incredible, like, poetic love story between a Japanese man and a French woman, and that deals with the war and the bomb, and it's just very, very
watch this right now.
Very original. It's an extremely original film, which he then carried on with last year at Marion Band. Bailey has an amazing list. So
Bailey has great taste. I've actually been on a live stream with her before. We were talking about Harry Potter, oddly enough, but we she has great taste. She's actually the one. Her and I both really want From Here to Eternity to make it on the Criterion Collection. We have written many emails to them.
So interesting, because she has Hiroshima. So she has Hiroshima, My Love. It's 1959. So it is the 1950s. But so that means the beginning of the French New Wave. Like Breathless came out in 1960. 1959 is, I think, the 400 Blows as well. You know, like Le Beau Serge, and that kickstarted the French New Wave. And Hiroshima, My Love was one of them. It was one of the pioneers of the French New Wave. So a very interesting film. And Rebel Without a Cause. You guys have seen that one?
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah. That's also pretty cool. Anyway, that's Sunset Boulevard, right? Yeah.
That was another Wilder film that could have made the list and didn't.
Yeah, no one
so
put
good,
it.
Though.
Bonjour Tristesse. That's Otto Preminger. Really, really good as well.
I love Otto
underrated Preminger film. All About Eve from The Rogue Critic.
Sweet Smell of Success is amazing.
Passive Glorious. Oh yeah, that's right.
I love Passive Glorious.
Wait, is that 50s?
I've only seen it once though. I think it's
The
50s.
Big Heat. The Big Heat is a Fritz Lang crime film.
Yeah. Well, Passive Glorious 57.
57. Wow.
Yeah, that's like my favorite movie year. I should have known that.
Oh, that's really interesting. Those lists are really interesting.
Yeah. All right. So I know Nathan has to go now.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
I got a tip.
Go.
Unfortunately, yes. My cousin and I are meeting up, and we're gonna watch Obi-Wan.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
I need to see that. But
Yeah,
thank
you're
you.
gonna review that, right? So I know whether I watch it or not.
Absolutely, man.
I'm seeing mixed reviews.
Yep. So far. See
Yeah.
what I think about it.
For sure. Well,
right.
that was fantastic, Nathan. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, thank you both for being part of it. This was awesome.
So 60s is it? Should we do the same thing for the 60s?
Yes.
down.
So that will be the concluding one of this series, and then I don't know what to do after that.
Wait, you're not going to do the 70s after?
Well, I'm basing it off of how I review movies, which is just 1890s to 1965.
Gotcha.
Oh, that's fair.
But for the 60s, I'm along the whole decade because that's kind of silly to cut that short.
Right.
But yeah, that'll be the concluding one next month. So we'll coordinate off screen if we're able to do that.
For sure.
But,
That's great. That'd be great.
But thanks again, both of you, for coming on. And
Thank you, Harrison, for having us. For sure.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And being part of my first live, really. That's my
You
first.
did a great job.
Yes, you did very good. All right.
Awesome
Well,
list.
all the links are in the description to their different pages and Nathan's YouTube, Adrian's Instagram. So make sure to follow them there if you aren't already. And yeah, thanks again so much, everyone.
Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.
For sure.